Hey, welcome everybody. Today we have with us Sangeetha Aiyer, who is the brains behind Rewrite Your Story. She is a nutritionist, dietitian, an extremely intelligent individual, I would say, dietary wise. She's lost a lot of weight and kept it off. And she eats like an Indian, in the sense she is an Indian, she grew up as an Indian. So she can help out quite a few of you dealing with your health issues. Hey, Sangeetha, how are you doing?
Hey Harsh, thanks for that introduction. Pretty much sums up what I do these days. I've been very well. How are you? Are you in the country or are you outside?
Currently, I am in the country. It's extremely hot here, so let's see how long I stay here.
Yeah, it's been crazy. For me, for the first time, it's a full-fledged Hyderabad summer, which I'm not used to, and it's been getting taking a while to kind of getting used to. So that's that. So Harsh, thanks for taking out the time to do this. Predominantly, I wanted to have this chat with you because many people I know, and for sure, young boys in the age and young men in the age group of say 18 to 30, 32, they're all, for whatever reason, raised and eat vegetarian. But when they want to move, even with the blessings of the family or they've negotiated it, there are lots of questions that I get asked, and sometimes while I have been on both sides of the aisle, I mean, I was a vegetarian and not even an egg eating vegetarian. I was a strict vegetarian, just a lacto vegetarian for the first 30 years in my life. I was born raised that way. I slowly started transitioning in my early 30s, and by the time I was mid 30s, I completely I'm open to eating any meat based, animal based diet. But um, for me, it was not so much of a challenge, but I thought that you would be the right person, not just to talk about this aspect of it, but in general, how your nutrition journey, fitness journey, therefore your productivity. We know that you manage a couple of businesses. We know that some of your online courses are a massive hit. So that was the intention, that via this conversation, it probably gives some insight into people who, one, are struggling with their nutrition if they are vegetarian; two, how to cross over to the other side; three, what are the benefits; and four, other things, like supplementation, lifting, etc. I mean, so the gamut is all open. So that was the reason to kind of chat with you.
Awesome. Let's begin. I think that you've raised quite a few topics, so let's
Correct.
bookmark all of them and approach each of them one by one. So, where do
Oh,
you want to start with?
yeah. So I always say, let's begin with the beginning. How was your growing up years? Let's say since you probably had memory, 8, 10, 11 years old, till up to your early 20s. What kind of an eating pattern did you grow up with?
So, I grew up in a very poor part of a city. Like, if you've heard of the word a chol before, it's
Yes,
it's
I'm
kind
from
of
Bombay. I have. Yeah.
it's a bit better than a slum. It's not a slum, but it's a little better than a slum, but
Mm,
a little worse than the ghettos in the
mm,
USA. So it's
mm.
somewhere in the middle. If you want to see a picture, you can just Google the word CHAWL chawl and you will see
Yeah.
it. So I grew up eating the typical Indian diet, the vegetarian Indian diet, that is, rotis and some kind of sabzi.
Yeah.
And typically I would eat one or two meals of the day that used to be pretty unhealthy. That would be something like samosas or fried foods or what have you. And that was predominantly because we did not have that much money, and
Right.
there was a lot of ignorance in my family where they would think that just because it's vegetarian it meant that it's healthy.
Right.
And the fact that if you grew up, say, lower middle class in India, you
Yeah.
will find that people commonly eat unhealthy food. Like they eat samosas and sweets and things like that.
Yeah.
It's an accepted practice. The people around you are fat. Most people, like most Indian, I'm going to just use the word aunties, not as an insult, but just
Yeah.
what I used to refer to them as. Most of them are fat. Most of these uncles are fat.
Yeah.
And if you are surrounded by fat people, right, and all these fat people are eating unhealthy things, then that food that you see everybody eat, it becomes normal food. So if everyone around you is eating a samosa, then suddenly samosa does not look as unhealthy to you as it should. So that's
Correct.
one aspect of how I grew up. I grew up eating a lot of chocolates, which I really regret because now my teeth have a lot of cavities which have been filled up. But I don't
Right.
think there's a single molar I have which does not have at least one cavity. Some of them have two cavities. And most of these I got before the age of 16. So, you know,
Yeah.
I wish, like, my mom raised me
And I'm
well,
assuming, sorry, I'm not assuming these are not some really high quality. We are basically talking candy here, right?
Yeah,
Toffees
this
and
is like,
candies.
dairy milk and all these chocolates, like
Correct,
the
correct,
10
correct.
rupee chocolates, not the most expensive one. Like
Exactly.
now I can afford Lind, right? I can afford a more expensive chocolate. But
Correct.
when I grew up, my father was not making that much money. He was sending us all to an English school. So I was
Yeah.
not from a rich family. My mom's side is rich, which is pretty
Right.
interesting. We can get into that later if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom's side of the family is extremely wealthy, a lot of politicians, and my
Right.
dad's side of the family is like total farmers. People who are hard working in the field. My dad used to repair bicycles to fund his education. So the
Hmm.
only reason my mom and dad married are, they're from the same caste. So that used to be a thing back in the day. Today,
Yeah.
that does not happen. Your politician is not marrying his daughter to a bicycle repair guy.
Yeah, yeah. So, did you? And drawing from that, I was raised similarly in a lower middle class family. A lot of people don't know this when they kind of see me on podcasts and on Twitter. Actually, I will share this very openly. I think I've written a thread about it. My father was an alcoholic. So, from the age of 8 till the age I mean, from when I kind of had consciousness, I've seen my father only as an alcoholic. Okay. So my mom was actually the breadwinner of the family, and you would therefore know that you basically had new clothes probably once a year, a new school uniform once in 3 years, and if you had food on your plate, you had to be grateful, right? You were not thinking in
Mhm.
terms of or healthy, or is there protein, or am I eating a variety of lentils or legumes? And because we similarly like you, we kind of came from that low middle class, and my mom was actually at one point handling three jobs. If we had two square meals a day, whatever it was, given the fact that my dad was pretty problematic, especially till I was about 20 years old, we were very thankful. In my case, Harsh, that kind of showed up, and it was carb on carb on carb. And yes, like very rightly you said, I remember my mom would come back from office, and like how the samosas in the north were very popular, in the south it would be those cream rolls you have. I don't know if you know those. They are covered with like a bread crust, and there is very cheap cream filling
Yeah, in
in
the
the
center. Yeah.
yeah, we call it a cream roll. So every evening, just as a feel good as a kid, it would be cream rolls. And for me, by the time I was 15, I was really fat, and I had a lot of like issues. So coming back, did you have a weight problem, or you were one of those lucky boys who was running around here and there, physically active, and it didn't become a weight problem for you?
I was actually on both sides of the coin because as a boy, right,
Yeah.
after maybe in middle school, I don't know, about say fourth to eighth grade, I was fat. But then I started having these growth spurts. That's
Huh.
when I became really skinny. So I was both obese and then I became really, really, really skinny.
Hmm.
But it was not the healthy kind of skinny in the sense that because I wasn't getting enough protein and a lot of good quality foods inside me, my testosterone levels at that age were not as high as they should have been. So that's why my voice, right? Like one
Yeah.
of those things about your voice, like if it's super deep, then that means you had high testosterone during your early puberty years. But since I have a higher voice, it kind of is it's because I did not get enough testosterone back in those days. Now I can obviously deepen my voice by injecting a lot of testosterone now, but it doesn't seem worth it if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, and funnily, because you are anonymous, I see that whenever people look at your success, or when you say something, that's the first thing that they pick on, without understanding that in puberty, if you are not nourished in the right way, it can show up as many things in men like it does in women.
I think
So,
women have it worse because I mean, as a guy, I can tell you I've dated quite a few women who had PCOS and all of these things, as a high voice, or maybe even something like gynecomastia, all of these can be fixed. If I
Yeah,
really cared about my high voice, I could just inject. Or if I
yeah.
really was bothered, someone is bothered by their gynecomastia, they can get it removed with surgery. But a woman who loses fertility because of PCOS, now that's something that
Lost you there, Hush, for a bit.
hey, can you hear me now?
Now, yes. You were
Yeah, I'm
saying,
saying
yeah,
a, a woman who loses her fertility to PCOS, now that's something you can't actually undo. So I would say women have it a little worse, because as a guy, right, like you have a little longer time frame. And every time I say this, some people will accuse me of sexism, but really, I mean, if you look at a woman's life, like take my sister's life. Now, if my sister, she doesn't marry and have kids until she's 33, maybe, then it's very unlikely she will have kids. And I mean, for most women, that's not a very happy life, right? To be single, not having
right.
kids, etc. As a guy, right, I could be unhealthy for until I'm 35 and then start fixing my health. Not the most ideal thing to do, but I could still live a pretty okay life.
Yeah, I think this will anger a lot of modern women with modern feministic sort of ideas. Even when I have, usually I talk largely about nutrition, but that one odd time when I write on Twitter that the best time to have children is before you turn 30. In fact, I would say it's under 28, 29, have the baby. I get a lot of pushback saying, I get a lot of anecdotal pushback saying that, hey, I had my first baby at 36 and it was great. But the thing is, you are right that women have a very short rope with their health, right? Because fertility begins young in women, and it kind of declines after a certain point in time. And there is a reason why 36 is medically defined as geriatric pregnancy, right? After 36. I know a lot of people don't like this, and yes, modern science has enabled a lot of women, for whatever reason, to kind of attain motherhood later. Also, everybody has their choice. But to your point, yes, I think the hormonal imbalance that happens due to either wrong nourishment or junk food or undernourishment to a woman, which begins 14, 15, and then if you don't fix it very quickly, the consequences can be dire. So yes, that's how nature has built us, and you have to accept it that our biological system and our hormonal system is far more complex and fragile. So that is you can deny it as much as you want, but it is the truth, and men will always have a longer rope because that's how the male and the female biology is kind of structured and defined by nature. Okay, so coming back, so you were actually saying that you were not the right kind of skinny. There was undernourishment. Now, quickly fast forward. I'll tell you when you piqued my interest on Twitter. I don't know if it was 2020 or 2021 when I was first starting to kind of write and kind of grow my share of voice on Twitter. I saw an article by you as to how to get certain amount of protein being a vegetarian. So when did your interest into nutrition for health, fitness, lifting, getting shredded come into your purview?
So back when I was 16, right?
Hmm.
100% of the credit for this goes to my mother, by the way, because she really pushed me to go to the gym. Back when I was 16, we moved to a place where there was a gym right next door to us. And my
Hmm.
mom spent every single day for maybe 2 months convincing me to go to that gym.
Hmm.
And I'm glad she did, because that changed my life.
Hmm.
Now, when I was 16, right, I started going to the gym. Went for like 6, 7 months, and my posture improved significantly. So people would not compliment me because I was looking muscular, but they were like, hey, your posture is much better.
Right.
So that kind of made me want to go to the gym a bit more, because, at that age, right, like I was very insecure, to be fairly honest with you.
Hmm.
And people complimenting me, you could make me do anything by complimenting me. I was that insecure. If you started complimenting me for drawing, then I would start drawing more.
Hmm.
So I was a typical teenager, to be honest. So I kind of was more inclined to lift more weights and things like that from a younger age. Now
Right.
I was also doing my CA back then. So, I wasn't very, I would have to take many, many months off the gym to prepare for my
Right.
exams and everything. But I noticed that even after training for say 2, 3 years, I wasn't getting muscular. I wasn't like looking good.
Hmm.
And so, I had a lot of free time back then, and I would actually Google and try to learn about how to actually get more muscular. And
Hmm.
one of the things they will always tell you is you got to eat more protein. Okay, then I'm going to try to eat more protein. Now, how do you actually do that? How do you eat more protein with your upbringing? In the sense that back in those days I could not eat meat, I could not eat eggs.
Right.
I come from a very vegetarian family to the point where my mother would start crying if you eat chicken. So people online, right? People on X would be like, you're a grown adult and you're asking your mom to eat this and that. I mean, like, I get you, right? Like, brother,
Yeah.
I agree with you, but it's not very pleasant to see a mom cry like twice a day, right? Just because you're eating chicken.
Correct.
I mean, we all love our mother. We want her to be happy. So
Yeah.
it's one of those factors which prevented me from eating meat or eggs and a lot of those things for a long time. But the
Right.
main optimizations that I would make was I was eating a lot more paneer. Now the
Hmm.
thing is that I was not very plugged into calories and weight loss and things like that. It took me a long time to realize the correlation between eating more and getting fat. Like eating higher calorie foods and getting fat. You are typically, as someone who grew up with my background, you just tend to think, okay, if I eat 3 meals a day, that should be fine. But if you're
Right.
eating paneer, which is like 200 grams of paneer is 600 calories, and you're eating that three times a day, so you are gonna get fat. So you start
Yeah. Paneer multiple times a day is not a protein leverage strategy really.
yeah, it's mostly a fat strategy. Eating a lot of
Correct.
fat, and fat is
Correct.
healthy for sure.
It is.
But you know, if you're eating too much, you will get fat. Like you could eat like
Sure.
a lot of protein and still get fat simply by eating a lot,
Yeah.
because your body has certain energy needs, and if you're putting in far too much more energy, like, it will just
Correct.
store it. So I was mostly doing that for a while. I really started learning a lot more about nutrition, kind of because I wanted to pick up more girls. And I had this phase back when I was maybe after my CA, so after I was 21, maybe 20ish,
Hmm.
yeah, 2021ish. Like, you have more testosterone and you're like, okay, now I'm done with my studies, I got to get married, I should date more. And if you look like a typical lower middle class or regular Indian guy, right, you're not going to get a lot of dates. You need to have that sophisticated look, some muscle showing, that kind of attracts women more.
Hmm.
So I was trying to look leaner now. I was really trying to do that. So how do you do that? You have to get more protein in with less calories. So somehow I managed to convince my mother to let me eat eggs, and that
Right.
was a big win back in the day. But
That coming from just a lacto vegetarian diet, which is basically dairy and vegetarian food, when you add eggs, it's kind of I won't say it's a massive game changer, but as a beginner, it kind of does move the needle significantly.
it really does. I mean, you can get like
Yeah.
35 extra grams of protein. For someone who is eating 50 grams of protein, if you can get 35 extra grams, that's a big change.
Yeah. Okay,
So
so eggs became an integral part of your. I mean, you convinced mom. You started eggs, and then what changed? I mean, did you as in that phase continued for how long?
maybe like 2 3 years, I think I was looking pretty good by this point. Like, I was pretty hot. I mean,
Mm,
that's not like me. I'm not trying to brag about being hot, like as an anonymous guy. I'm like, I'm the hottest. No. I mean, but compared to the average guy on the street, I was looking pretty good, right? Like, if I would wear a shirt, my biceps would pop out, and
mm,
girls would tell me that. So that's something as a 22-year-old, I would care about that type of stuff.
mm.
And then I started eating to actually get stronger. So how the Maslow's hierarchy of needs goes, right? When you are broke, your main need is money and food and protection and
Right.
things like that. But as you start making a little more money, you can start caring about health. And as you get healthy and you get more money, you start caring about spirituality and things like that. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
So back when I was 23, right? So one of those things is that I have been in online business for maybe since I was 20. So
Mm.
I was already a millionaire at 23, 24 years of age, because affiliate marketing is extremely profitable. So I had the money thing going on very well.
Mm.
And, if you're making quite a bit of money, you're still trying to improve your life, right? You are trying to look better. And at that age, you're trying to date a lot of girls. So I
Right.
was trying to lose more fat and get stronger. And I'm like, okay, I need to start eating chicken.
Mm,
And then I started eating chicken at restaurants. I didn't tell
mm,
my mom or my dad, or I didn't tell anybody at home about this. But for a couple of years, I was eating chicken.
mm,
Um, and then my mom eventually found out. She was pretty pissed about it. But then she's like, okay, if you're gonna eat it anyway, you might as well eat it with my knowledge than without it. So now she's made her peace with it,
mm.
and it's been very good for my health. One of the only downside is that I only eat chicken outside my house, so
Mm.
it's not like the best quality chicken, right? It's broiler chicken, the least quality chicken, but it's chicken.
Okay, so you now eat outside the house? It's cooked in house? Is it allowed in the house? How is it? Or
I don't eat chicken inside the house. I don't bring chicken inside the house. I go
okay,
out once a day, have my chicken.
okay, yeah, yeah. No, actually, what you are describing, or the scenario you're describing, is not very uncommon. Okay, so I will have so many young men who will come onto the program and say, hey, you know what? In the house, eggs are allowed, but I can go to this place and that place every day once and have chicken. My parents have agreed to that. But you're right. Number one is you don't have control over the. You can almost be sure it is mass farm chicken, so that's one. Number two, you don't have control over the kind of oil, etc., that you can use. But I still feel that I'm not recommending it at all. But if you do kind of the dry chicken variety or the starter variety, like tandoori chicken or grilled chicken, you still can get away. And then sometimes it's so funny, it happens in my consultations that a young 24 or a 28, 29-year old will come on call with his mom, and she will be like, okay, ma'am, Manina, I have kept this place in the pantry separate with an induction stove. He will be allowed to eat only chicken breast because it doesn't smell, and we'll make good with it. You just tell him how to go. I have got on calls with the mothers of 28, 27-year-olds saying that your boy will just need clean looking chicken breast. 6,000 rupees is the cost of a mini freezer. 1,500 is an induction stove. 1,500 is a pan. That's it. And trust me, Harsh, that adding 200, 250 grams of chicken along with maybe some eggs, a controlled portion of paneer, changes the game for protein in a massive way.
I think if you can have chicken, right, you
Yeah.
can you can eat the best nutrition possible. I mean,
Yeah.
technically speaking, you don't actually need to eat red meat. You can get everything from chicken and ghee and other vegetables and everything like that. If you
Yeah.
want to eat red meat, it's fine. But once you get chicken in the game, right, you can solve your entire thing.
Yeah, I think there are certain nutrients in red meat that you probably don't get to the extent in chicken. But I kind of agree with you. To be honest, I just went meat shopping today, and red meat is, if you go for the one with the bone, it's about 900 rupees. Okay, and if you go without the bone, it's about 1,300 per kg. I don't think most households can frankly afford it, even the so-called middle class or upwardly mobile middle class household with a four member of a family. So my whole thing is that if you can bring in red meat, with whichever be your choice of red meat, even once or twice a week, and then you have chicken and maybe some fish in your diet, if at all, but even with just chicken, eggs, paneer, you're pretty good actually.
Yeah, chicken, the advantage of chicken is that it can be made in factories. I mean, it's very cruel. I've been to one of these factories. The way they
Yeah,
do it is like a small A4 sheet size paper cage, and the chicken never gets to move. But
yeah.
that's why you can get chicken at 250 rupees a kilo or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's a question. That's a question I get asked a lot. But what about steroid usage and antibiotic usage? And I want to tell everybody that steroid usage has been banned. Number one, but yes, it is pretty cruel. Those chickens, they don't move; they are packed. You're absolutely right. It's like a matchbox. The one thing that you have to definitely be, and because they are packed like that, they're sometimes prone to infections. So at the last stage, there may be sometimes some antibiotic usage in them. But I think one way to look at it is the way Indians at least cook their food, right? The residue of all of this kind of goes away.
I don't know, man. I don't trust it. I'll tell you what. I
Hmm.
think that with and I'm saying this with all good graces, poor countries, right? When I use India, I'm going to say most of India is a poor country.
Yeah.
But when I say poor countries, there is not a lot of regulation. So you could ban
Right.
steroids. It's probably going to be in your food anyway. But the thing is that you can't escape it, because let's say you're eating vegetables, but you're eating pesticides, right?
Yeah.
So unless you're growing your own food, you have
Yeah.
to accept some amount of contamination simply by the fact that you live in a poor country. In poor countries, people want to make more money, and one
Yeah.
of the ways people make money is by adulterating food.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
one of those things you have to accept.
I think I do take that with a pinch of salt, probably a big bag of salt. But the thing is, then when you look at everybody per se, then I tell them that everything is kind of adulterated because of food regulation. I mean, and we know the recent story of the Indian spices, the fish curry, and the other masalas. I mean, there is no regulatory authority even there. There is no regulatory authority with your water, with your vegetables. So I just tell people that the best thing would be is to try and try and do the best you can with what you have. And then if you want to up the game, then you have to make more money. It's as simple as that. So for example, I would try and go and scout antibiotic free, or today, like I was
Those
saying today.
hydroponic vegetables.
Yeah, today I got what they call nattu kodi in the south. So it's basically nattu is country chicken. I kid you not. The I saw the bird. The bird was had a certification on its leg. Okay, it was prepared in front of me. And can you imagine chicken costing 1,200 rupees for 1.2 kgs? That is the price of your gaon wala chicken, which is not even pasture raised, but actually raised in the wild. And that is unaffordable, really, by
See, the
many.
thing is that people have gotten used to the fact that they can afford things, and I mean this in the nicest way possible. But stuff that is good and natural cannot be cheap,
Yeah.
in the sense that, I mean, if you go back in time, right, why did a lot of people become vegetarians? It was because meat is expensive. When population rises, it's not like the animal population is also rising significantly, right, with human population. Then you
Yeah.
have to start eating grains because that's all you can afford. Now, the
Yeah.
reason chicken is cheap is because of factory farming. The
Correct.
cruelty which people complain about is the reason why you can afford eggs and you can afford chicken. Now, if you want to
Absolutely.
avoid that cruelty, you have to pay for it.
Yeah. And rightly, the misconception that India is predominantly vegetarian, it had to turn largely vegetarian and grain based, because at the rate at which we were growing, and of course, there is the entire story of the famines. Um, uh, Cheap calories is what a large part of this population through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s could afford. So, and then the story began that, if you mush your calories, like eat it like dal chawal, or eat it like sambar rice, or eat it like khichdi, you could eat more of it. And most of us were starving through those famines. So there are so many considerations that come into play when you look at regenerative farming versus organic farming versus mass farming. But yeah, 8 billion people on the planet is not going to be easy to feed by being organic and things like that, or then you'll have to pay a premium for it. Unfortunately, currently there is no solution to that. So coming back, Harsh, currently you are basically a chicken paneer. Do you consume whey protein?
I consume 2 scoops of whey protein a day. So I eat about 200 grams of protein a day.
Right.
Typically, that's 400 grams of chicken breast, 2 scoops of whey, about 200 grams of low fat paneer, 4 to 6 eggs. I will also have some skimmed milk here and there, things of that sort. I also get some protein from besan and my rotis and everything, but I don't really count it. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, all these protein sources, like the plant protein, right? They add
Yeah.
like 5 grams, 6 grams, 10 grams. And if you have sources which are giving like 70 grams, then you start ignoring the 5, 6, 7. If you're a vegetarian, like a pure vegetarian, then you need to count those 7, 8, 9 also, because you are going to need them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what I want to tell vegetarians, and again, I'm one of those people who got such a massive backlash for saying dal is not a high source of protein. But It is what it is, people. Dal is not a source of protein. For that matter, no plant protein is, unless it's soy. And then soy is a completely different story. It has so many anti-nutrients. It is not indigenous to the Indian palate. And trust me, Harsh, for people who have some kind of a lactose problem, I do provide soy because I don't have any other option. All those people will come back to me in a week and either complain of bloating, or they'll say, oh, the texture of tofu doesn't work for me, it feels pukey. So when I say that soy is actually not viable, it is not viable not just from a, it's the most GMO. There are so many things in soy that don't work for you. But I think one thing that a lot of people don't realize when they look at plant protein, and especially Indians who are so, I'm saying, so stupidly, irrationally, emotionally attached to the way they eat. I mean, I don't understand why are you romanticizing dal chawal so much? And you say it is complete protein. Yes, on paper it completes 9 amino acids, but for every one part of plant protein you eat 3 parts of carbs. That's the truth in any plant protein. And you people have to understand that when they eat like that, their total caloric intake or energy intake goes berserk. If you want to complete 100 grams of 9 amino acids, like complete protein and bioavailable protein, and nobody sees, nobody works out. Ask me, I have to negotiate a 45-minute walk by most people. So this is where my advocacy for introducing some form of animal protein comes in. On that note, have you seen your meal planning become simpler when you turn towards animal protein?
Definitely. So what happens is when you have plant proteins, like I told you earlier, right? Plant protein sources, let's say you eat one roti or three rotis, you get like 5, 6 grams of protein per roti.
Right.
Then you have to start counting every single thing, right? Because everything is giving you a very small amount of protein. Like dal, a cup of dal is like 5, 6 grams. One cup
Correct.
of dahi would be like 5 grams, and things like that. Then you have to like do a lot of mix and matching. And if you're trying to get something like, let's say someone is 80 kgs, you're gonna eat a minimum of 125, 130 grams of protein, with minimum, right?
Correct. Correct.
So you need to start counting everything and be very specific. Okay, I had so much dahi here, I had this much paneer here. But if you eat meat, it's like, okay, I eat like two chicken breasts, I got about 70 grams of protein in.
Correct.
Now that makes it much simpler, right? Okay, two chicken breasts in the morning, two in the evening. I'm done with my 140. Then I can eat whatever I want. So it definitely makes things simpler.
No,
One thing I
absolutely.
recommend a lot of Indians to do is to actually download one of these apps like Healthify Me or MyFitnessPal and actually track what you're eating, because many of you guys have a lot of misconceptions. Like Sangeeta pointed out, dal being a source of protein, right? Try actually coming up with a diet where you consume 1.5 grams of protein for your body weight, and then put in whatever you eat, put in your best source of protein like dal, and see if you're actually getting as much protein as you think. Because most of you will be surprised to learn that the things you consider high protein are actually 90% high carb foods.
Yeah, and one more thing, even if you're going to achieve, like you said, let's say for somebody who's 75, 80 kgs and you have to get 120 grams of protein, let's say you achieve 120 grams of protein, then as a consequence, I want you to take a look at your total calorie consumption to achieve that. You will be exceeding your calorie consumption by minimum 30 to 40%, and then your activity level to compensate for that has to be insane, which is why when most strict vegetarians who don't even look at whey protein and eggs, when they even eat so-called a veg-based diet, or they eat ghar ka khana, you can put all the effort you want in the gym, it's not going to result in anything because the nutrition is suboptimal at the end of the day. So that is a problem, with vegetarian protein. And to that extent, that's why my advocacy is to kind of, if you know you are a strict vegetarian, you're not eating eggs, then some form of a protein isolate, whether it's plant protein or plant protein isolate in the form of pea protein or whatever. I mean, that completely depends upon you. Again, I'm not somebody who will advocate for plant protein even in isolate form, but whey protein is a great option for you. But if you think that there is so much vilification of whey protein, and that too after this last report that became public. And then people have issues with their cost. I mean, you're not going to forget building muscle. The nutrition is going to be very suboptimal, right?
See, the thing is that if you go to the gym regularly and you don't eat a lot of protein, right, you will still build some muscle.
Hmm.
Now, you will build some muscle, but you will see. It's like if you could have built 3 kg of muscle, right? Let's say in 6 months, you will probably build like half a kg of muscle.
Hmm.
And that will eventually start topping out because you will not build a lot more until you consume protein because that's what your muscles are made out of. So you have to eat more protein for sure. Regarding the whole whey protein controversy, I think whey protein is a very good source of protein.
Correct.
Just make sure that you don't buy it from Flipkart or Amazon or something like that. Buy it from the brand, and buy it from a decent brand. Don't buy it from some cheap ass brand. This is about your health, right? These brands, they're the cheaper brands, right? The very new things that's untested by anybody. You are putting your health at risk. At the end of the day, right, you are consuming a factory product. You're trusting this factory with your health. And you know, if you are trusting the wrong person, then you could be eating anything. I mean, you could literally be eating anything. It could be damaging you, any part of your body by being fake. If it's real whey protein, it's not going to hurt you. But you have to make sure that the protein you're drinking is real. You buy it from some random shop or you buy it from a gym trainer, it's probably fake.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend purchasing from the brand and buying it from like a big established brand.
No, absolutely. I tell my clients and everybody that whey protein is not a place where you cut corners with money. Trust me, a decent brand is between 2,500, 2,800 to 3,500, depending upon the brand that you choose. On an average, it's about 3,000 rupees for a kg, or um, but and trust me, I find it very difficult to believe, unless you're really struggling for money, that you cannot afford 3,000 rupees in a month. There are many other places that you can cut your stupid 10,000 subscriptions that you have, and all of that, where you spend time on Netflix and watch endless amount of cricket, indulge in all of this. There are places where in going out every weekend, and I'm saying, people tell me, oh, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. So I think there is a benefit ratio and a opportunity cost that you have to calculate, and not to cut corners when it comes to whey protein. It is when you choose a terrible kind of protein from your local gym wala, and go to the most cheapest brand, is when you are then going to get heavy metal adulteration, and you're going to have lots of lesser protein than demanded, and probably it's not complete, and those issues are going to be there. But I think that whey protein is a damn good supplement, and it can significantly change the game for you. On that note, while it's a great supplement, some people have made it their meal replacement. Your thoughts on that, Harsh? I know people who drink 4 and 5 and 6 scoops of whey protein.
Oh yeah, I was that guy for a while that I used to have like 100 grams of whey protein. The thing is that if you can get your protein from actual food, it's much better. I think that whey protein is supposed to supplement your protein, right? It's not supposed to become your source of protein
Correct.
because at the end of the day, you are eating something that is synthetic. It's not something that God gave to you, right? Like a chicken is something that God made, or evolution made, what have you. But whey protein is something that was made in a factory. There's only so much trust I have in a factory. For all of these considerations, and also for things like society and actual, ROI in terms of, how much that protein helps you, I don't think you should be eating like 6 scoops of whey a day. You should try to get your protein from real food and only add in whey protein when you need to supplement it. So whey protein has some uses. Like for some things, it's actually better than real food, in the
Mm,
sense that if you're having a protein right after your workout, right, it's gonna get
yeah,
absorbed very quickly, and
correct.
it's gonna be better than say eating chicken after your workout. So there are things for which whey protein is really good. But if you're eating random protein, say for dinner, like many hours after your workout, you might as well eat something real than eat protein powder.
Yeah, so I think the point of satiety is very important, that because it is processed and it's quickly absorbed, the gastric emptying effect of processed protein, which is whey protein, is not delayed. Okay, so give you a small example. A 100-gram chicken breast is about, let's say, 30 grams of protein. If you have a chicken breast, say in a meal, 3 hours, you will not be hungry. But let's say you've not eaten a meal, and every time you're trying to complete your protein intake with processed protein like whey protein, within half an hour to 40 minutes you will be hungry. Okay, so that's one. Second is excessive of anything. It's not, I mean, your digestion and your digestive system is not suited to, and your gut is not suited to take in so much of processed protein. You are designed for nutrient dense foods, which which kind of take a long time for gastric emptying, and which kind of deliver all the nutrients to your body. So in the long run, yes, maybe if you're a competing athlete, and those are very different professions. If you're a bodybuilder who's looking to bulk and shred, those are all very, very different case scenarios. But for general health and fitness, if you're trying to hit below the 10 the 18 to 15% body mark of body fat, if you want to up your protein to about 1.5, 1.6 grams of protein, a combination of real food, whole food based protein and whey protein is really good. I For me, Harsh, whey protein is convenience. I'm a small eater. I, over a period of time, can do only 2.5 meals a day. So that half meal of mine is usually a whey protein shake, where I will get all the other protein from those 2 meals, and I predominantly eat animal based. So that kind of seems to be a sweet spot where that I don't have like acne and hair fall and bloating, which are the common complaints I get from people when they start taking too much of whey.
I think
So
someone who has
mm,
bloating when they take whey, right? You might be lactose intolerant. So
yes,
you could try like some kind of very good isolate, and
yeah,
that should take care of a significant portion of the bloating.
yeah,
Or maybe
cool.
some take some lactase or something. Because if you're getting
I
bloated because of
there are
whey, it's
also
lactose.
lactate supplements that can help you with lactose tolerance, but usually, unless you are highly lactose intolerant, most people do handle and isolate well.
Exactly. Like the isolate removes the lactose, so it's much
Yeah,
better
yeah,
for lactose intolerant folk.
yeah. So, Hush, let's move to so much talk on supplements, right? Right from magnesium to doing TRT to now methylene blue is the new one, Tonkat Ali, and there is Shilajit, and there's so much in terms of supplements. Do you have a specific supplement protocol?
Okay, so this is gonna be me speaking for 5 minutes because I have like a whole triad about this, right?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
If you go online, you will find people pushing supplements like take magnesium, take this, take zinc. Here is what you need to do: download an app called Chronometer and input everything you actually eat in a day in the app. Now, this app is similar to MyFitnessPal, except it's very good for micronutrients. So you will see if you're actually not getting certain micronutrients in. For example, you might turn out that you're not getting a significant amount of B12 in, or you're not getting vitamin D in, or something, or you're not getting enough zinc. That's when you start supplementing that food and that nutrient, simply because supplements are not something you just take because you saw it on the internet. If you need it, if you're not getting it from your diet, or if you're deficient, like if you get a test and turns out you're deficient, that's when you should take a supplement. So for things like magnesium, zinc, and many other things, I would say either get a blood test or something and try to figure out if you're deficient, or do this thing where you put in all of your foods into this app, then see if you are missing some nutrients. If you're vegetarian, you are probably not getting a lot of B12, so maybe you should supplement
Yeah.
that. That said, there are two, three supplements that everyone should be taking that don't really have a significant upper limit and would give you like a big boost. So one of them is creatine. Creatine is something that your body makes naturally, but it doesn't make nearly as much as it could use. And it will help you lift more. It's going to make you look better. It's good for your brain. Highly recommend about 5 grams of creatine monohydrate per day. Then the
Just
second one, I would say,
just
yeah,
to
go on.
just to interject, sorry, Harsh. Creatine now, over the last year, if you look up examine.com, which is an independent source that they have no sponsors, etc. A lot of work on creatine has been coming for cognition, productivity, longevity. So creatine is now not just it's not just restricted to lifting better, building better muscle, going for longer in the gym, but there is a lot of brain boosting power and I just read like 5 7 articles last week on examine.com on the power of creatine. So creatine, I agree, whether you're a man or a woman, you should take it.
Creatine is very, very, very good for you, and it
Yeah.
literally has no side effects. It's one of the oldest and most safest supplements out there,
And
so I
most
don't
research
see why you would
is,
not take it.
yeah,
And so cheap.
correct.
Then secondly, I would say take vitamin D, about say 2,000 to 5,000 IU per day. Now I'm not a doctor, but this stuff is very good for you. Most people are not getting enough vitamin D, and this includes people who spend a decent amount of time in the sun. For
Mm.
example, my father walks 2 hours a day in the sun, and he was significantly deficient in vitamin D. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that can happen. And it turns out that it's very difficult for your skin to make vitamin D just from sunlight, and you need to supplement more. Like we don't live in Africa anymore, right? Humans have migrated from Africa. Africa used to get a lot of sunlight, but most of us do not spend 6 hours in the sun. You should take some vitamin D, 2 to 5 KIU a day. You will get some vitamin D from your diet if you have those free range eggs, by the way.
Yeah.
But if you have the regular egg, the 10 rupees wala egg, you will not get it because those are broiler chicken eggs. The chicken didn't spend enough time in the sun, so it can't give you the vitamins.
Yeah, and
That
you'll get a little bit by sun drying your mushrooms, but if you want to be happy doing that, do that. You can put your mushrooms, even button mushrooms or any kind of mushrooms, in the sun for 20 minutes, and then they soak in. They kind of synthesize the vitamin D better, but nothing that is significant to supplementation. On this matter, as a woman, I think we, especially in India, given that you need significant skin exposure in the sun to kind of even synthesize vitamin D, and we're all clothed in India, women will definitely need to cyclically supplement. One more thing I want to say, I am not a doctor either, but what I have noticed is blindly doing 60,000 IU of those soft gels once in a week. Please don't do it. You need K2. Vitamin D also, along with K2, needs some fat in your diet to kind of absorb it. So test your vitamin D first. Don't blindly go and take 60,000 IU. Probably the most decent, like what Harsh is saying, like I probably do now, I do 2,000 or 5,000 every alternate day because I'm at probably sufficiency levels. My sufficiency would be at about 45 to 55. But don't blindly do vitamin D as well. Continue, Harsh.
regarding the K2 thing, right? I don't think you need to take it. I mean, I've recently found like I didn't even know what K2 was. I saw it on X, and
Hmm.
X are like your body's gonna turn into a statue if you don't take K2. The thing is that I have blood work going back quite a while, and I don't have very high calcium levels in my blood, so
Hmm.
that kind of shows that vitamin D is not going to turn you into a statue. And there
Hmm.
are many many studies which have shown that unless you are taking like 60,000 IU vitamin D per day, not a week, you don't need like the K2 and things like that. So I think some of the K2 stuff is like a marketing gimmick, doesn't seem to hold good. Like at least my blood work has not suffered by
No,
taking vitamin D.
all these obviously have studies and it's very case to case basis. I'm not saying everybody should kind of do it, but in many cases it also doesn't absorb without keto. So that's my understanding of it. But there is a lot of individuality in it. Yeah, sure. So yeah.
It's possible. Yeah, you might be right
Anyway,
about that.
I tell you what, yeah, see the nutrition and the absorbability of various micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals is so varied between two people, and there are so many cofactors at play that what works for one may not work for the other at all in that sense, right? So all schools of thought exist, but I think the best way to look it up is actually go get your basic blood work done. And yeah, I think I completely agree that please don't go and take every probiotic, prebiotic, just because Instagram is now flooding you with influencers to do so. You have to know, test it in your blood work, and then supplement strategically.
Exactly. You have to take supplements for stuff you're not getting,
Yeah.
right? If you're already getting something enough from your diet, like if you're eating a lot of fiber, right, then you don't need to take prebiotics.
Mm.
Like if that makes sense, right? Because like what is that prebiotic? It's fiber or whatever it is. Like I'm not very well versed into the prebiotic stuff, but this is like a limit of understanding about prebiotics. You don't really need it. It's
They're
like a
basically
marketing thing.
strains. They're not fiber. So what you're referring to is isabgol, for example, or psyllium husk, which is a form of
Yeah.
fiber. These things, the good bug, and there are tons of. They're basically strains, and there are millions of strains of bacteria. Some good, mostly good, which kind of help you populate. But I just don't trust any of these unless somebody has tested them. Okay, because if you look at Instagram, from helping you poop to helping you sort your acidity to somehow magically allowing you to lose weight, none of these are actually. I mean, I will be very very cautious about these claims that are being made, right? And most of these prebiotics and probiotics are something that I was doing some research many years back. They actually have to be taken every single day for your stomach to ultimately populate, because otherwise they pass through. So be very careful when you're doing it. Go to somebody who knows their stuff, research the brand, but just don't take something just because, like I said, the internet is bombarding you with ads and influencer marketing to do so.
Exactly. The main other supplement that I take regularly is cod liver oil or fish oil,
Hmm.
and that's just for the omega 3s. That's
Yes.
pretty good. It's very, very good for you if you don't eat fish.
Yes, absolutely. Also has the potential to drop your triglyceride level if for some reason, even if you've approached the low carb diet, omega 3 helps you to keep your triglycerides in control. Not many people eat fish and seafood, so yes, it's very helpful. It's also protective of cardiovascular conditions. That's a good one.
So that's pretty much all I take. I have a whole bunch of supplements that I rarely use, like a multivitamin. Like I might take it once in a blue moon, once every 20, 25 days when I
Yeah.
remember to take it. Just in case, like an insurance, if I'm missing something, then here's something that has everything. So that's one of those things. I have a whole bunch of powders like magnesium and zinc and potassium. And if
Mm.
I'm for some reason not eating any carbs, or I'm just like really really doing the whole ketogenic stuff, that's when I would take it, just so that I don't get the whole keto flu.
Right. So one last topic I want to talk about, because I'm sure everybody would want to know. What's your take on fasting, Harsh? Do you fast at all? Because I'm somebody who fasts. It's become second skin to me. 14 hours is minimum usually. Do you fast at all? Do you fast therapeutically? Do you fast for a? Do you fast at all? And your take on fasting?
So here is my take on fasting, right? If you lift heavy weights,
Hmm.
don't fast. Don't do it. Like if
Hmm.
you're lifting, when I say heavy, right, I mean a weight that you can lift less than 5 times. If you're deadlifting, say
Fine.
160, 170, even 140, right?
Hmm.
And you're fasting, it's not the best thing to do, because you need energy, you need alertness, because you make a small mistake here and there, you get injured, right? And when
Hmm.
you are fasting, you are going to have less energy, and you
Hmm.
might feel more energetic, but when you try to lift the weight, you will realize that you have less energy, you're getting tired faster.
Hmm.
So just because you feel more alert while fasting does not mean you're actually more energetic. So
Hmm.
I would say if you're lifting heavy, then don't fast. And that's just my personal experience, right? There might be some stances that disagrees, but personally, I don't feel safe enough when I'm lifting heavy and haven't had enough carbohydrates and food inside me.
Hmm.
If you don't lift, right? Let's say you're an office worker or something, right? And you don't hit the gym, then fasting is a very good way to control your caloric intake. You could eat 2 meals a day, 1 meal a day, and it's a good way to ensure that you won't start getting fat. At
Hmm.
the end of the day, I still think that if you are eating clean, it
Mm,
doesn't really matter if you're eating like thrice a day, 4 times a day. I would preferably say if you're eating to become stronger, right? Eat more times a day. At least split your protein. Don't have like 200 grams of protein in one meal, because it's not the most ideal situation to do. You want
mm,
your body to have enough protein to build all the time. You don't want it to have like 200 grams of protein in the evening, which it will absorb, but it will not necessarily use for building your muscle. Some of it will, it will use it for other things. It might even store some of it as fat because it might not need it right away. So
mm,
if you want to lift heavy, get stronger, split your protein up into multiple parts.
mm,
Um, if you are an office worker, don't want to get fat, then fasting is a very good strategy.
mm.
It's that thing about carbohydrates, right? Like if you are not lifting very heavy, right, then you can afford to be like in a very low carb diet. But if you
Yeah.
are trying to, let's say someone is squatting 40 kilos, like someone that's ridiculously weak, right? My cousin brother who is 60 kgs, never been in the gym, can squat 40 kilos. That's so weak. Just let's say someone can only squat 40 kilos and their goal is to get to 180 kilos, right? Now this guy needs to eat a lot. Like this guy might even need to eat like 250, 300 grams of carbohydrates a day and eat like 5 meals and things like that. But on the other hand, you take someone like one of my old colleagues from office, right? This guy is gonna sit in his chair all day. Now, does this guy need to eat 5 times a day? No. He needs to eat maybe once or twice a day because he's not doing enough to deserve all that food. His body's not gonna use the food he's eating to build muscle. It's just gonna put it in fat because he's not doing anything to tell his body, okay, I gotta get more muscular. So this guy needs to eat much less.
Yeah. So I thanks for that. I have changed my mind on fasting, uh, and I have categories for it. Okay, and I tell people that if you're hitting the gym 4 to 6 days in a week, don't fast at all. Okay, because um, you your fasting technique will be very different. It will be probably once in 15 days where you will go for 16 hours just to kind of give your gut a little bit of a rest, but that's not really a fast if you ask me, right? I call
Mhm.
it something like therapeutic caloric restriction, which I have done with a couple of clients who go 4 to 6 times in the gym, and like you said, lifting serious heavy weight, wanting to transform, doing body composition. Most people who, and I call them even recreational people who go to the gym, where on an average it will be 2 days in a week, maybe three if it's a good week. They have a bit of junk going on, they have a bit of whatever going on. Then those people, I tell them that, do a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour window. I can figure a way to get you the protein you need, and at least that way I will cut down your carbohydrates and all your entertainment calories in the form of junk. Now, if you're somebody who's not even that, and you're walking, let's say 40 minutes in a day, which is what most people are, unfortunately. And I know you and me have spoken about this on Twitter. Most people, for me, I have to negotiate, like I said, 40 minutes in a day. You don't even need 80 grams of, I mean, 80 grams of carbs in a day is more than good for you. Point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein is also good for you, right? And I want
Yeah.
to then, I want to then, restrict your eating window to say 8 9 hours, so that you at least get the benefit of insulin being low, and you start burning fat, right? So that is what I have kind of done. Of course, people like you and people like the first category that I spoke about, going to the gym 4 to 6 days in a week, that set of people are very minuscule, very minuscule.
You are correct about that. I will say that more people should be lifting a lot more and be more active. I
Yeah,
have no idea how people struggle to walk 40 minutes a day. In the sense that, like, if I have a look at my watch, right, I've already walked 12,000 steps today, and it's like
right.
5 p.m. I've already gone to the gym, and probably before I sleep, I'm gonna play like squash for an hour or some kind of game. So it's probably gonna be like 15,000 steps, 20, 30 minutes of high intensity work like squash.
Correct.
And I've already lifted my weight. So I have no idea how people are so lazy that they struggle to walk for 40 minutes. Like, I've never computed that, never understood that yet. Maybe it's because I've been active for a while. Um, I will
No,
say that if
because
you are not active enough, you should not be
but
carbs, like
yeah,
you said.
I'll tell you, yeah, people look at most of people around you, right? They're also stuck in the 9 to 5, 9 to 6 rut, and then if you're in a bigger city, it's a 2.5 hour commute, and then you have no energy left for anything. Largely, this is the life, unfortunately. But I do believe that even in that life, if you don't give this a priority, a lifetime will go by and nothing happens really.
I agree with you. See, if you are someone who's stuck, right? Let's say you have like a job and a commute and all,
Yeah,
everything. You will find it very difficult to train regularly. The only variable that you can change is diet. But my experience is that, and you can feel free to disagree, is that it's much easier to maintain a good diet if you lift, because when you maintain a good diet, right, you are getting less of those feel good hormones that you would typically get from eating sugars and what have
yeah,
you. And the only way to compensate for that is by lifting heavy, or exercising, sweating, because that also makes you feel very good.
yeah. No, I completely agree with you. In fact, there is something very peculiar that I have noticed in myself, that it is for me. My deviations are anyways far and few, but my propensity to deviate towards stupid, ugly foods happens when I have taken away from my activity levels for a long period of time. Okay, somehow for me both go hand in hand, because when I'm going to the gym, it gives me all those feel good hormones. I feel very accomplished for the day, and then I keep my diet also on point, and then I will not do those little deviations. But if for, let's say, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, I noticed this when my mom was hospitalized, because I just couldn't do anything for a period of at least 9 weeks, apart from obviously being mobile and walking everywhere. I noticed how little feel good foods come into you because you're tired, you're emotionally distraught, you have not been to the gym. So both feed into each other. But I always want to tell, no matter how terrible a job you're working, I don't think it is rocket science or it is impossible to get 30 to 40 minutes to hit a gym 3 times a week, because that you can make time for. And at the same time, you are eating 3 times a day, so it's better to kind of keep your nutrition in check. And then once you start hitting certain rewards, whether it's your weight or whether it's your paunch or whether it's your blood work, then it kind of helps become a habit.
Agreed. I think that you have to try it out for 3 months. And, when you start losing weight, right, you get compliments. And that really helps make it stick. It's one of those very
Yeah,
superficial things, but it really does work. Especially when you're fat. Like, if you're fat, you're insecure. Most of us
yeah,
are.
yeah.
And, you start losing weight, everyone starts complimenting you. Then suddenly you start taking it way more seriously.
Great. So I think we've covered a lot, and this was a good first chat. Any parting notes, Sash, before we wrap up?
I think my main parting note from talking with you is that people need to take people need to take their own health a lot more seriously, in the sense that I don't think you should have to negotiate for someone to walk 40 minutes a day, in the sense that that's something that people should be willing to do and be doing already. But it's one of those things, right, where you can't really complain about it too much, because if everyone was fit, then we wouldn't have business.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Yesterday I put out some pictures of other clients, and I said, it takes work and sweat, and the unsexy, boring part is the 90% of it. And yesterday's tweet actually came about. I was having a tough 8 week, 10 days, because clients, they were not adhering to the law, they were not walking, and they were not whatever. And uh, you might differ in saying that, hey, they paid you, and they have to have accountability. 20, 30, 40% of being a nutritionist or a health coach or whatever is also kind of a little bit of a pep talk, understanding people, and that's where it gets a little exhausting. But then there are some people who kind of make a lot of excuses and then you give up, right? I feel I think in my practice I strike a decent balance of both. Though I'm not somebody who will babysit you, because I am somebody who will say that, hey, you bring at least 30-40% accountability, and then if you're having a bad week or you're going through an emotional week, then we'll discuss what can be done. But I think the bigger problem I have is when I see 25-year-olds having diabetes, 28-year-olds having a high triglyceride problem, now it's getting younger and younger, and I think you just need to take your food very seriously. And unfortunately, a lot of people, Harsh, also think that in their 20s, especially because 20s is very forgiving, right? You would know that. But come 30s, it all kind of hits you.
I You are correct. Like you are very, very, very correct about this because again, it's not like I'm 28 right now, right? So I'm not in my 30s yet,
Yeah.
but my body or my recovery level is significantly worse than what it was back when I was say 21. So when I
Mm,
was 21, right, I could sleep 1 hour a day and not be like completely crippled the next day. But
yeah.
now if I don't get like 6 7 hours of sleep minimum, then my day is kind of pretty much ruined, right? I'm not gonna be able to work that well. And it's only been 6 7 years. So back in those days, right? I would have older people tell me that when you're 40, you need full sleep. And now I get it. I mean, those guys are correct.
Yeah.
A few things that I would like to add to our conversation that did not come up was one, coffee, right? If you are gonna
Yeah.
drink a lot of coffee, don't have it around your high micronutrient meals, right? Don't have it around your eggs, don't have it around your supplements. Don't, if you're gonna have coffee and eggs, like you're retarded. Like that's dumb.
Yeah. I am not a fan of any tea, coffee, any herbal tea, any black coffee just immediately a meal or to kind of finish off a meal. You are depleting micronutrients for sure.
Yeah, because caffeine makes it hard to absorb certain things.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in Indian culture, like it's become a thing where you have tea after food or before food or in the evening. And it's one of those things that I would say if you're having something that has caffeine, don't have it around things that are supposed like you're eating for micronutrients. For example, if you're eating dried fruits, right? And you have tea at the same time, then you've kind of lost the reason why you ate those dried
Hmm.
fruits in the first place.
That's a great point. Yeah.
The second thing for vegetarian protein people is that try out low fat dairy products because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with fat in your diet, but
But
high
you can't
fat
have
dairy products
but you
have
can't have high carb and high fat in your diet. Sorry.
exactly, you're going to get fat.
Yeah.
So since you cannot remove the carbs, then you have to reduce the fat. So
Correct.
that's why you got to try out the low carb, low fat dairy products, and they have a pretty good amount of protein in it. So it's going to help you
Yeah.
hit your metrics. The third thing I would say is that you need to avoid eating ultra high carb meals every day for breakfast. A lot of people I know who are diabetic, right? If you ask them
Yeah.
what do you eat for breakfast, it's gonna be like I have aloo ka paratha,
Yeah.
and aloo ka paratha is like wheat flour and potatoes inside it. If you're eating that every day for breakfast, like two, three of those, three, four of those, you will become diabetic because you're just blasting yourself. Like,
Yeah. Or the other favorite, Hush, is bread butter jam with tea. Hello?
oh yeah, probably. I haven't had that, so I
Yeah.
haven't. I meant to come across people who eat bread butter for breakfast. Like maybe quite a few people do, but most
Lots,
people.
lot. And I tell you what the younger ones do, or the early 30s because they don't have time, or it'll be like a toast with like a bowl of cereal because it's ready to eat literally, right? So
Ah,
that a lot of and then they will eat muesli thinking that it is some very evolved version of cornflakes, which it is not. So I I always say this: the best way to start your I am anyways a fan of saying that no meal without protein, but definitely don't start your day without protein with these really ultra processed carbs, refined carbs. It's just not. I would at least be okay with like. And this is how I change meal combinations. I'm like, if you're having, let's say, poha, just have the poha with some eggs. Or if you're a vegetarian, do some low fat paneer with the poha, or do some Greek yogurt with the poha, or have poha and have half a scoop of whey protein. Don't just feed yourself simple sugars.
Exactly. So that's one thing. One other thing I want to add is that a lot of people get fat because they don't have good meal timings, in the sense that, if you eat whenever you want, you are gonna get fat because you are eating in an uncontrolled way, right? Like, if you it's like, how cow is always eating. You are
Mm.
not cattle, so you don't need to snack, right? Just because, like, okay, I had lunch, now I want to have some sugar, so I'm gonna have like a piece of candy. Then I had dinner, and I'm gonna have some ice cream. Then in the evening I'm gonna have, tea with some biscuits and what have you. Really, cows eat like that, right? You gotta understand that food is fuel. You're not grazing. You're not like, you
Yeah,
cannot just eat all the time.
I actually call that grazing. I said, y'all, I mean, graze through the day. You go to the kitchen, you somehow can't stop yourself from opening the fridge and putting something in your mouth. Or you're just bored, you have to eat something. Or you've actually done with dinner by 8:30, but you're watching Netflix, so you want to munch something along with it. Grazing and snacking quickly adds up. Quickly.
Exactly, because the type of foods you're eating is just like
Mhm.
sugar.
Correct. Correct.
One other thing is that, I mean, by the way, this list is long, so if you're bored, let me know.
No, no. We can go on for 5 more minutes before we wrap up.
Don't eat right before, like, don't have the midnight snack, because that just gets turned to fat.
Mm.
Because the midnight snack, right? What are you gonna eat? Most people are eating some kind of carbs or fats, right? But you're not gonna burn those carbs or fat because you're about to go to sleep. Now, where is that gonna go? Probably to your fat storage. So if you're gonna have a midnight snack, make it like a protein thing. Otherwise, don't eat it.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of shift workers, right? IT guys who probably work in the US timings, right? So they'll probably begin at 7 and go up to 3 and all of that. And very quickly, Hush, within like a year or two, they'll gain a lot of weight because one, there are two things happening. One, of course, you're completely screwing up your sleep schedule and going completely against circadian rhythm. And second, staying up in the night beyond a certain point and not adhering to, and by circadian rhythm, I'm not saying, we all become farmers and sleep at 7:30 or 8:30, but beyond 10:30, 11, if you are going to stay up, your cortisol levels are going to rise, and high cortisol levels automatically increase insulin levels, and you will get hunger that is not even real hunger, right? So with shift workers, I somehow have to design a plan where even if they're working till 3 a.m., their last meal is not beyond max 9:30. And then we use a lot of, I call it liquid calorie protocol, not like Coke and Pepsi, but a tall glass of fresh lime soda, unsweetened iced tea, a lot of diluted buttermilk, maybe kefir, kombucha without sugar. So all these are certain things that I use when I'm weaning them off that hunger in the night, and it's quite a difficult thing. So if you have to pick up something, then pick up one of these beverages. But if you're going to like eat a chivda and then some save and I don't know khakra or whatever that you're going to pick up, or a bar of chocolate, or you're going to sit with a whole bowl of popcorn and makhana thinking they're very healthy, it's going to add up.
Oh, that reminds me. I had a question that I actually wanted to ask you,
Tell me,
and this is a question that I'm not fully confident that I'm right. Okay,
which is,
is
yeah.
mustard oil healthy? And the reason I ask this is because I just don't know. It's one of those things that I'm not sure of myself. Indians have been
Okay,
eating mustard oil for
I'll
quite
tell
a
you,
while.
if you talk to the guys overseas, right, who are going crazy behind seed oil, right? So for them, everything is a seed oil, right? But if you ask me, I have not seen convincing studies against two types of oils which are very common in Asia and South Asia. Okay, one is mustard oil, okay, and second is sesame oil. Both these
Interesting.
yes, both these oils are used all over China, Malaysia, South India, sesame, and mustard oil is popular in certain parts of North. But I'll tell you the intelligence of how this was used. These are not oils that are used every single day for every single thing. These oils are what I call, in Hindi we call them tadkas, or they are flavoring agents, or they are used for specific dishes in specific season, right? So, a good example that I can give you from the north is your sarson ka saag happens in sarson ka tel, correct?
Right.
Sarson ka tel doesn't get used in everything, right? Similarly, I'll give you an example down south. When we eat idli and the powder, the gunpowder that South Indians eat with the idli, we may put a little bit of ghee on the idli, but the powder for that we use sesame oil. Okay, you know
Hmm.
how little that is? That is 1 teaspoon. Okay, but we are not frying, cooking, and making everything in these oils. So the intelligence, if you ask me, is to rotate your cooking fat between ghee, butter, coconut oil, depending upon which part of the country you are. If you have access to good quality olive oil, yes, and seasonally sesame and mustard oil.
Awesome. And one more question, and this is just because a lot of people have asked me this online. Is eating a lot of saturated fat healthy?
Completely depends upon who's asking the question, and it is it's multifactorial. Okay, now you don't have to fear saturated fat to the extent that it is recommended to keep it below 6% of your overall intake. I think that is bullshit. That translates to almost like 1.5 or 2 tablespoons of ghee. Okay, but the question to ask with saturated fat is, if you're using it in a way you're supposed to use it. So, for example, certain saturated fat comes along with protein itself, especially animal protein. And if you're eating a little bit of red meat, eggs, paneer, you will get that saturated fat. Now, if you're going to use ghee and butter, okay, uh, you'll get a little more. Now, let's quantify this. Let's say, on an average, you are eating both from food sources and cooking sources. Let's say you're eating 80 grams of total fat, 70 to 80. Unless you start using cooking sprays and going really lean, it is difficult to be under 40 grams of fat in total. Out of these 80 grams, if half is coming from saturated fat, it's actually not a problem. Okay, now this has to be correlated with two, three things. One, obviously, how your lipid profile is working, and there is a lot of, again, cofactors to that, your genetics and things like that. And second is, are all your other parameters okay? So I'm never the one who will say ignore LDL cholesterol, and I'm never going to say eat any amount of saturated fat you want. And I will tell you one more thing: this eating of the butter stick trend that is going on in the carnivore community is very unsettling, because that's not how. I mean, if we talk about ancestral nutrition, hunter gatherers were not eating sticks of butter either, right? So I don't get where this sticks of butter is coming from. But the way I look at it is, if all your other metabolic markers are great and you're lifting and you're doing well. So other metabolic markers, meaning your triglyceride, your HDL, your triglyceride to HDL ratio, your height to waist ratio, your fasting insulin, your HbA1c, your fasting blood sugar, postprandial. If all of this is in control, and let's say you have a slight elevation of LDL cholesterol, which is, say, it's supposed to be 100 as per blood markers, but let's say it's up to 130, 140, 150. Personally, I have never seen it manifest into anything to worry about. Okay. But if all the other markers that I told you are crappy, and your LDL cholesterol is 140, 150, 180, 200, then you have a lot more work to do with your saturated fat, with your other markers, and you better look at LDL cholesterol. So I know it's a roundabout way of saying, of kind of following a middle ground, but I don't think you can very, very confidently say that any amount of saturated fat is good for you. No. but it doesn't have to be feared to the extent that you have to restrict it to 1 tablespoon in a day, or and you have to completely eat egg white only. You throw away the yolk. That 1 or 2 or times in a week that you're eating red meat, you worry about it, or you're going on chasing lean meat of every kind and feeling miserable. You don't have to do that.
Okay, so let's say someone who's fat as fuck. Okay, let's say someone who's
Yeah.
like 40-inch waist and
Hmm.
probably has all the bad blood markers that come with
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
What are the good fat sources that they should eat?
If you want to not, so again, good fat sources will if I look at your lipid profile, okay, and I see skyrocketing LDL levels, okay, anything above 200 for example, and a 40-inch waist, okay, I will then probably put the person on a little bit of ghee, definitely not butter and coconut oil, olive oil, okay. If you have access and if you have a little bit of money, then maybe avocado oil.
I see. What are your thoughts on, um, for example, someone who's that fat, right? Should they be eating milk and cheese and things like that?
If you're that fat, why are you adding to your fat calories by having cheese? Like, that's stupid, no?
Yeah, yeah, I get you. The reason I'm asking is that a
Yeah.
lot of
So,
the people who
see,
follow us,
I,
right? They
yeah,
don't
I,
actually.
see, this is very interesting because this all came by when the keto thing came by,
Exactly, the
right?
keto stuff.
So
Yeah.
it is so, and I get this so much because I want to say that first and foremost, a keto diet or a ketogenic lifestyle is not for anybody. It is only for people who have unique medical conditions where glucose metabolization at any given point in time is a problem. Now, these conditions can be mental health conditions. These conditions can be epilepsy. This condition can be certain kind of autoimmune condition. This condition can be some kind of like ulcerative colitis or autoimmune IBS, right? These are conditions where even a little bit of glucose in your body, right, is causing a massive malfunctioning of your body. You're not a person who, unlike you and me, Hush, who have the ability to be metabolically flexible. Meaning what? When there is glucose available, we can use glucose. And let's say you went on a fast, there was nothing, you were able to use ketone as energy. That is literally what I do. Okay. Ketogenic lifestyle or keto diets byproduct was weight loss seen in epileptic children who tend to be overweight because they have no control over their nutrition, or in many cases, in many mental health cases, where their medication makes their entire rigs their dopamine system and their entire eating for a toss, right? Or where they can't use glucose for energy. So keto. Now the simple thing is this: yes, the dietary fat you eat will not get stored as body fat when you're eating a ketogenic diet. And I have tried this with a lot of people, including myself. But if you are 20 kgs overweight and you're holding on to diet body fat, how does eating more and more sick loads of dietary fat get you to access your body fat? It doesn't. So so essentially what works for people who are highly overweight is actually a low carb or medium fat. When I say medium fat, nothing more than how the fat comes with your protein and needed to cook it. So no full fat cheese and no eating butter sticks and slathering sour cream and cream cheese and multiple tablespoons of butter coffee. No, that strategy is not for you. It doesn't work.
Understood. Some more questions, and all of this stuff is simply because people, on Twitter,
Yeah.
these questions come up, and I'm trying, since people are gonna be
Sure,
listening to our
sure.
podcast, we're trying to answer the common questions. What is your take on soy chunks?
Oh my God. I am always skeptical. See, we spoke a couple of half an hour before. We spoke about how India, being largely a poor country, or if you want to be diplomatic, call it a developing country, is actually the hub of cheap products with cheap nutrition, cheap ingredients, and cheap labels, right? We've seen that right now with Nestle, the whole thing that has happened. Where they're adding excess sugar. We're seeing that with spices. We're seeing that with everything. In fact, if you go through the personal hygiene care category of any, and I'll name all of them, I don't work with any of them, whether it's PNG or Levers, you will see that everywhere. Now, my whole point is this form of soy is not available anywhere in the world, and some the local soy industry, whichever that industry in India is, discovered a way to market cheap, unhygienic, vegetarian protein, which is actually a wasteful byproduct of creating soybean.
It smells and looks like garbage, if you ask
It is
me.
it's like a turd. And then look at how it is. Even tofu is expensive. Even tempeh is expensive. Natto is not even available in India. Okay, but this soy chunk, and first it is that. So a form of food that is exclusive. It looks terrible. It is made in the and earlier, Harsh, I don't know if you didn't know, it came out of a very this unorganized kind of an industry. I think it largely is still. Only when Nutrella came and put a label to it and called it meal maker and did some fancy marketing to it, it kind of came into mainstream, right? But this, why would you? I mean, you have to be a little cautious about a form of food that is not available anywhere else in the world. Second, we all know that any form of protein is slightly expensive. What makes this protein so cheap? So cheap. It has to be some form of ultra processed garbage. Like I said, it is a waste byproduct which somebody has decided to monetize, given that Indians will eat any shit if you call it vegetarian protein, and they eat it. Plus, it doesn't help that we have all these vegetarian gym bros who will go and make shit out of it and all of that. But let me give you a very good insight. Go into any vegetarian gym bros Instagram account or Twitter account. They are very careful about the quantity. Like in a day, 20 grams, 50 grams. In a week, bro, I don't cross 150 grams. I have never heard of anybody eat animal protein. For example, Harsh is not careful about his chicken breast intake, right? You're not, Harsh. You will eat 200, 400 grams, knowing that there is no side effect that it may cause. Why are these
Exactly.
guys who don't have any other choice of protein, barring paneer and whey protein, so careful about the soy chunks that they eat? Because it is a problematic food and the most problematic form of soy.
Understood. My next question is, what are your thoughts on this saying, breakfast is the king of all meals?
Um, if you are somebody who's following circadian rhythm, please do not miss breakfast. Okay, what do I mean by that? Breakfast doesn't matter when you're eating. It's basically the first meal of the day when you break your fast. Okay, so if you're somebody who's very disciplined, and Harsh, you were doing the 5 a.m. challenge, right, recently. So if you're
Yep.
somebody who's waking up at 5, which means ideally you're going to bed by 10:30, 10:45, not beyond that, which means that if you're a sensible person, your dinner is done by 7:30. You can wake up at 5, finish whatever you need to, and eat at 8, because you are waking up from a body that is in a catabolic mode, and you want to give the body some food. So if you're somebody who's living by that, please go ahead and have your breakfast. But if you're somebody like me, okay, who tends to sleep slightly later, like I'm 11:30 person because I have consultations, calls. I'm generally slightly more nocturnal. I used to be a 1 a.m. in the morning, which I've brought to 11. And let's say my last meal tends to be around 8:30. And when I wake up, let's say about 7, I don't need to get up and eat the first hour of the day because I'm not hungry. I won't be also, right? So it completely depends upon what your lifestyle is. Now, point number 2, all research shows that if you don't eat enough calories in the first half of the day, okay, And I'm not saying that you stuff your face the minute you wake up. Let's say you wake up at 5 or 6 or 7. If before 1 or 2 you have not had a significant amount of nutrient dense calories, the propensity to overeat the wrong kind of calories in the later half of the day is highly possible. So to that extent, it is better at least you start your first meal at least by 11:30, 12. Now, all of this is customizable to who you are as an individual. Now, for me, my meal is anywhere, first meal is 12:30 to 1:30, and it will end by 8, 8:30. Is that the most ideal? No, but for me, it's the most practical.
Understood. I agree with you there. If you have to discover some of these things for yourself. If I have a very
Absolutely.
high carb breakfast, right, then I will want to eat all day. So
Correct.
you learn a bit about your body. My next question is, what do you think of fast food chicken like KFC or Subway?
uh, Treat it like a treat and eat it once in a while. What makes KFC junk food and so tasty and almost hedonic in its nature is not the chicken. It is the crumbing. It is the high content of sodium. It is the way it is deep fried in that oil, and they have that unique spice mix, which largely is a combination of ginger powder, onion powder, garlic powder, along with high sodium that gives you that taste. So, if you're perfectly healthy, you are not having metabolic issues, once in a month you want to enjoy a piece of KFC, go for it. But that's not the place to go to complete your protein requirement for sure. Subway, I have a very different experience in India, and I will discourage anybody to go and do a Subway unless they are just picking bread and meat from that place. Okay, now again, if you're healthy, you tolerate the bread, go for a multigrain bread or something like that, you're fine. My problem is the most unhygienic way in which vegetables are cut and stored in this country. And if you look at how they wither and wilt away and they are not stored in the right temperature condition, and these guys are so stupid, if they run out of lettuce, they will serve you raw cabbage. Raw cabbage, you need an iron gut to digest raw cabbage. It's going to cause, so it's not the bread or the
Oh man,
meat
I
that is
love raw
suffering.
cabbage. Go on.
I have seen this in Bombay. Okay, they ran out of lettuce, so they cut the raw cabbage into thin strands, and they had that, right. So in the Subway, if you're healthy once in a while and you're looking for a lunch option, I would probably take the olives and maybe the yogurt based sauce and maybe just the cold cuts and the
Do they
meat.
have a yogurt based sauce?
I think they discontinued it. It's been a while since I stopped. I stopped eating Subway because it's one. I don't trust vegetables in this country. I don't. On top of that, I don't trust raw vegetables because it gives a gut problem. The pesticides. Plus, I am not confident as to how these people. When did they cut and store it? Is it stored under certain temperature that prevents bacteria and all of that? It's a no no for me.
I think Subway, again, my experience, right? It's pretty decent if you have some of those. Like, personally, I love eating vegetables, right? I can tolerate them well, and I
Huh.
haven't had any problems with eating. Like, I haven't come across a Subway that's serving stale food, like at least not yet. So, in my experience, right, the peri peri chicken and all of that is like it's pretty good. The only thing is that they're trying to mess it up now. Where like earlier they used to have mustard sauce, right? And
Yeah,
now they have honey mustard and they discontinued mustard. I mean, why
correct.
would you do that?
Now,
You know,
earlier I used to love their yogurt sauce, and that was my only sauce because the ranch and all those other sauces were very sweet for me. But now I think they've discontinued both the yogurt and the mustard.
yeah, now it's just oil-based sauces. The only sauce I will have there is red chili now, but even that has sugar, so
Mm.
I'm not very happy about that. Oh, that brings me to my
So,
next
so
question.
I
Is
am
there
I am just going to
what?
say that it's very difficult to get fat eating Subway. Okay, and unless you are loading it with all those sweetened soy sauces and you're having those honey oat bread, and it's an every single day thing. But it's a decent option to go to if you are decently active and all of that. But I have a peculiar problem with raw vegetables, and I have seen a lot of people. I eat cooked vegetables, I tolerate them, but raw I don't tolerate. So that's my personal experience.
Yep. Everybody is a little different like that.
Little
Um,
different.
I've I've had I've had situations where I've had to eat Subway every day for like a month if I was like out of town and for work, and there was a Subway in the office building. You get it at lunch or Subway.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Oh, that brings me. I wanted to ask you one more question. Is
yeah.
there a real difference between, say, eating Jaggery versus eating sugar versus eating some other kind of sweetener?
No, yeah,
Wh-
no, no, not at all, not at all. There may be some difference in eating very high quality honey, okay, like Manuka honey and whatever honey, some difference, but all sugars, all jaggery. I mean, sure, jaggery may have some trace micronutrient, but they are so small in comparison to the fructose and the sucrose and all of that, that what you majorly think you are eating is you're not getting that. Okay, now even with honey, even with something like Manuka honey and things like that, what is the overall composition of your diet? If you're eating a shitty diet, you can take the most expensive honey and caviar in the world and eat. That's not going to make a difference, right? But if you're eating decently clean, maybe a little bit of Manuka honey, and that when you add it to your lemon tea, gives you a little bit of that antioxidant boost. I mean, so the question we have to ask is, who is asking this question, and what is the overall composition of your diet? Okay, now if
No,
you're going to
typically this question, just for context, it comes from people who say things like, okay, I don't eat sugar, I eat Jaggery, so it's healthy. I
no,
mean
it's
that type of person.
no, 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 no. You can do a. I have had diabetics say this to me that हमने तो sugar छोड़ दिया, now we are having jaggery, or they will say we are putting honey. No, it's the same composition. It's all sugar. You just look at the chemical composition of all of this. It's all sugar. Nothing is healthier than the other.
What are your thoughts on artificial sweeteners like aspartame or even natural sweeteners like stevia?
Um, the only see the word is divided on that. Okay, if it is far and few, fine. Okay, so if for example you're going to do, let's say, a keto ice cream which has stevia and some whey protein in it once in 10 days, and otherwise you're healthy, it's okay. Or see, hush, all of these things become problematic when it is a regular thing. Now, I'll tell you what happens with people, and I know there has been a lot of discussion on diet soda, right? Whether it's Diet Pepsi, Coke Zero, your Diet Coke.
Hmm.
The problem is that if you're somebody who's drinking 1 or 2 cans in a week, right, to beat the heat or to take care of your sugar craving, while 80-90% of everything else you're doing is fine, then it probably will have zero impact on your gut or your health. Okay, but what I have seen is sugar is very insidious. Okay, and I'll give you an example. People who are addicted to probably regular sugar or regular Coke, regular Pepsi, will negotiate with me, and this has happened, saying that I'll do it twice a week. I'll say, okay, twice a week will become 4 times a week. 4 times a week will become daily. Daily it will become 2 times a day. Okay, so one is obviously the sugar drives you to kind of ask for it more, whether the sweetness comes from natural sugar or regular sugar, table sugar, or one of these artificial sweeteners. Now, some people, when you start consuming it like this, and this goes same for keto sweets and keto bombs and no sugar, artificial, you have those guilt-free chocolates and all of that, then you will start noticing over a period of time some gut trouble happening. Now, there is no research, because I think the last research on gut microbiome was done, a study was done, I think for 2 weeks or 4 weeks. That's too short a time. But for the normal audience, I will say this, that if you have control over the consumption of anything that is artificially sweetened, then go for it. But if it takes you into the same rabbit hole of no control, then you know you have a problem with sugar as a taste. You're better off controlling that taste.
Understood. My experience with diet soda is that it's very addictive, and I'm gonna tell you that I was doing this very big cut some
Mm,
time back. I was cutting like a lot of calories. I was on a very
mm,
small amount of food,
mm.
and when you're eating a very small amount of food, you will have very strong cravings. And I
Correct.
was using Coke Zero to manage that. And
Mm.
I think I got to the point where I was having like three Coke Zeros a day. It's very hard to quit because your body keeps wanting it. And I didn't face any health issues from drinking Coke
Yeah.
Zero. At least not that I noticed any health issues. But at the end of the day, you are eating something that it's not natural. I don't trust the Coke Corporation to care about your health. I
Yeah.
would, I the least trustworthy people I would say is McDonald's and Coke and all of these people.
Yeah, I mean, they care about their profit margin and their shareholders. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Like, it's pretty crazy that it's become so normalized. I don't think it's that unhealthy as some people make it out to be, but definitely
No,
should not be normal.
you're not going to disrupt your gut microbiome overnight by drinking one diet coke. Oh my god, no. I mean the fear mongering is crazy, but the same thing, Hush. The potency that it has when you are going through something like a cut, for example, and when you're craving, and you tell yourself, "Hey, I'll allow myself one diet coke, okay, or coke zero," and how it very quickly goes to three, right? uh, that is a behavior shift, which, and I know you're a very disciplined person, right? So your normal behavior is not to go and do it so many times. I'm also like that with food. If something makes me or draws me towards it in such a manner that I keep reaching out for it, I start questioning that food or my ability to deal with that food.
Understood. I have a few more questions for you if you have the
Sure.
time.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the vegan documentary, The Game Changers? For some reason, vegans
Yeah,
love to bring it up.
yeah, no, but you know what? It's so funny that you have to. I've seen it for people. I mean, I don't want to take a lot of time on it. It's been cherry picked. It's been people have been fed junk food and then their cloudy blood. I mean, there are so many things for people who want to really see a minute by minute debunking of that documentary. Please go to a YouTube channel by a person called Brian Sanders. He goes by the name Food Lies. He's done a debunking minute by minute of that documentary with a lot of evidence, right? So that is one. Second, you whenever the makers and the producers of the documentary are people who are invested in pea protein and soy protein, then I have a lot of motive to question, right? So James Cameron and the producers, they all have stakes in vegan based protein. So then I'm thinking that it's the same question that we ask Harsh in studies, like who funded the studies, right? It's like Coke saying, "Hey, sugar is actually not bad for health. You just have to control your calories." It's the same thing. So that's a that, and for that matter, all the other the twin study that came by recently by Plant Choppers, that has been broken down into so many things. Unfortunately, the problem with documentaries is that people will see the documentary and remember the well crafted narrative, but they will not go into the actual study. So I would call a whole lot of BS on that. Now, on that note, a lot of people ask me, are you saying that it is impossible to be healthy on a vegan diet? That would be wrong for me to claim. But you have to be such an elite. Uh, uh, One, you have to have a lot of resources. Two, you have to be able to procure foods that you probably may not have access to where you are from. Number three, you need to have very, very extreme elite understanding and sophisticated knowledge of nutrition. and you need to supplement a lot. And that's not the even the above average person doesn't have that kind of resources or eliteness in their knowledge of nutrition.
Oh, I want to add that all the people who tell me about the strongest vegan, that big
Yeah.
beefy guy, right?
Mhm.
You have to inject trend to do that regardless of what you eat. You cannot look like that on any
Correct.
diet. That's a steroid diet. That I don't cover that.
Yeah. See, any person who's gone to the gym for any significant amount of time and built muscle, right, can look at the photo of a guy and tell you, is he juiced up or not? It's pretty easy.
For a lot of them, it is pretty easy. Sometimes you can't tell nowadays, right? With these Instagram influencers, you cannot really tell. Like, no, in the sense that some of them, they started taking juice when they was very weak. Like, let's say someone who couldn't even lift 60s taking Anavar or Tren, and then they start looking decent, but they're still on juice, even though they are not as good looking as they would have been if they started taking juice if they were,
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah, that's a possibility. That's a possibility.
That's pretty common. That's like maybe more than half of the cases. Like the guy is not at his natural peak, and he started taking juice very early because he wants the views and the
Mm,
clients for being big. All of that. This happens in India quite a bit. Like if you go to a lot of these powerlifting competitions, like a lot of them are trainers, gym trainers, and they're very incentivized to win because then they get like higher paying clients. So it's a little more complicated. I'm not an expert in this stuff. I've never actually
Even
taken
I
any
am not,
juice.
but on that, when I was in Bombay, I used to train with a decent, not a very high profile trainer. One of those trainers who are part of your clubhouse gyms, and I've heard him so many times talk about these cycling. They say they're on some. I'm also not an expert on this subject. They cycle peptides and they cycle something and they cycle something. Probably because they spend more money on those steroids or whatever you want to call them, peptides. Because one, they are not so strong. Second, their nutrition may not be on point, and they probably want to catch up and then allow nutrition to play. But I have heard this. I'm on a cycle, मैं cycle ले रहा हूँ. I have heard this a lot.
Yeah, for a lot of them, right? It's very difficult to get above a certain point without gear. In the
Yeah,
sense, okay, you can get to sit twice your body, you can squat twice your body weight, deadlift twice your body weight without gear. But if you want to do something way too crazy, you need gear. I mean, your body was not. We did not evolve to become like muscle beasts, right? It's something
that
that is
that again is not natural or ancestral. That's a sport.
exactly.
Yeah,
But social media is driving people to do it because all the
yeah,
influencers are, they have abs and everything. The
yeah,
one thing is that if you see someone who's very big and
mm,
they're shredded, you need steroids to do that because it's
yeah.
very it's extremely difficult unless someone is very genetically gifted to be both big and shredded. Like it's
Mm,
difficult. So
mm,
that's typically enhanced. One more question for you, Sangeeta.
mm.
If you had to make a few changes to the average Indian diet, like let's say you have the average Indian guy, and what are the 3 4 changes they could make to significantly improve their nutritional well-being? Let's say the how can you get 60% of the juice in 20% of the effort?
Yeah. Okay. So first and foremost is change your plate proportion. Okay. And I can't emphasize more on this because an average Indian plate, even calorically and visually, okay, 50% to 55% of that plate is carbohydrate. Then probably one katori of dal. Dal is a complex carbohydrate. Then one katori of vegetable and then there is some curd. Okay, this plate proportion needs to change in a massive way. And the way you do it is you need to have at least 40%, 35 to 40% calorically and visually of any particular meal to come from protein. Now, the easiest way to do this, and so the easiest way is Don't do a meal without protein. If you're an average Indian vegetarian, that for you will be please some amount of Greek yogurt, 1 to 1.5 scoop of whey. You will have low fat paneer, because I agree full fat paneer may not always work for you. Um, and you can get some skimmed milk, maybe 200 ml. Okay, so if you're vegetarian, that if you're an egg eating vegetarian, bring in eggs up to 4 to 6 eggs in a day. Anybody can tolerate four very easily, and same. So one, every change your plate proportion. Number one. Number two, no meal without protein. That will ensure that you get about even 25 grams of protein if you ensure in every meal, right? So you will you 20 grams is at least 60 grams of protein via food, and then let's say you've supplemented by 1 scoop of whey protein, that's another 25 grams. You've at least hit a decent amount of protein quantity. So make every meal with protein. If you can bring eggs, chicken, paneer, and whey protein in your diet, you don't need to look further at all. Okay, so that is one. Number two, if you're not going to the gym seriously 3 times in a week, you really don't need more than 100 to 120 grams of carbohydrates. You are just overeating. So, 100 to 120 grams of carbohydrates from every single source. So, you forget that grain, of course, is carbohydrates, but then your dal is carbohydrates, your legumes are carbohydrate, your fruits and vegetables all have glucose. So, a total of 100 to 120 grams. Don't exceed that. If you are somebody who's seriously hitting the gym 3 to 4 times a week, up to 150 grams you can do. And after that, if you're heavy lifting, you're not the average Indian guy, then that diet is not for you. Number three, very easy. 2 to 3 days in a week, try and bring in a 14 to 16 hour fast. It's not only a great form of caloric restriction, it also allows you to deal with your hunger or false hunger signals a little bit. So that's the next thing. Uh, Fourth thing is stop, which Harsh said before also. Your digestive system is not that of a herbivore or a cow. You're not supposed to be eating something through the day. Allow allow go go between two meals for 3 hours without eating anything apart from, let's say, a black coffee or green tea or some water. That has to be normalized. I think just these three principles, and if you don't have access to a gym, everybody can get up and go for a walk in the morning for an hour, 45 minutes. That doesn't take any money, any equipment. There itself, you will start seeing a lot of changes in your body, in your nutrition, in the way you sleep.
Understood. Here is the next question, and I'm sorry I'm bombarding you with questions, but
Can we make
I
this the
want to
last?
cover
Oh, I have a
typically what people
consultation.
think. Go on.
I said, can we make this the last one? I have a 6 p.m. consultation.
Sure. Then I'll make it the last one. Where can people find you? How do people contact you if they want to consult with you? And also, what are the best books people can read if they want to learn about nutrition themselves?
So let me address the books first. So I will give you Deep Nutrition is the first book you need to read to have an unbiased view about nutrition. Okay. Unfortunately, I got into books by reading books on insulin and all of that, but deep nutrition basically it doesn't take a carb approach or a non-carb approach. It basically talks about ancestrally what we were eating, how we evolved, how how our facial structure, our skeletal structure, our dental health, all of that. Deep Nutrition is a really fat book. Start from there to understand what the role of nutrition is in your whole life, in how you procreate, what you pass on as genes, what you don't pass on as genes. If you're going to get into pregnancy, if you're going to be a father, it'll give you a complete life changing. Then, of course, if and this I want to bring in because this is largely probably an Indian audience, and I don't think there is a single family in the Indian audience that doesn't have people who are diabetic or who have a cholesterol problem or who are suffering with obesity or hypertension. Please look into the art of low carbohydrate living on one end. And if you want to delve a little deeper, you can look into a book called Why We Get Sick. So, why we get sick will give you a deeper uh, biological understanding of how hormones play a role in deciding how to store energy when you're eating what you're eating. The low carbohydrate way of living will allow Indians, where 60-70% of our carbohydrates are coming from, I mean, our nutrition is coming from carbohydrates, how to change that gradually. So, get started with these three books, and then there are so many books you can read. Um, Coming to where you can find me, I am most active on Twitter at the rate SAAIYER, or if you type rewrite your story, you will find me. You can reach out to me on Sangeetha, SANGWTHA, at the rate rewriteyourstory.com. Harsh, I'll share the ID with you. You can put it in the show notes maybe. I'm
Mhm.
unfortunately not very active on Instagram, but yes, 2 to 3 days I do look at Instagram. But the best ways to reach me is via DM on Twitter, or you send an email to this email ID.
Awesome. So that was a talk with Sangeeta. If you have any questions, you guys can leave it in the comments below and we will answer them. Have a good day, everybody. And thank you so much, Sangeeta, for being on the
Thanks, Harsh.
show.
This was great. Thanks for sparing all the time.
Awesome.
Bye.